I think it would be safe in saying that all of us hate it when we fail at something. I know I do. Of course, we have all failed along the way, but perhaps the issue is, how do we respond to failure? Joining us today from Edmonds, Washington is Dr. Gregg Jantz. He is a certified psychologist and the author of 45 books, the latest of which is Why Failure is Never Final. Dr. Jantz, welcome once again to Bridge City News. It's always a pleasure to have you on our show.
Oh, good to be with you today. And this is a really interesting topic.
Well, looking forward to hearing more about it. So let's get started. Can you give us a brief overview of your book?
Sure. When I think about failure, and by the way, this is my 39th year in the helping professions, and I see a lot of folks who feel like, man, I have failed and there's no hope, and I failed in my career, relationships. You just have a sense of failure. And so I began to look at this and go, you know what? No. Uh, some of what we think are failures can be our greatest steps towards really maybe a plan that is really good. And I believe that hope comes when we have a plan. So I love helping people see, no, yeah, we all make mistakes. We're all human beings. But guess what? We're going to use this. God's going to use this, and it's going to be good. Hang on. Hang on. We get into a mentality that really feels like I am a failure, and we start to identify that. And I'm here today to tell you personally that's not true.
Well, speaking personally, when I've experienced failure, especially big failure, that feeling of failure seems to be in lockstep with a sense of shame. Is there a connection between failure and shame?
Totally. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Shame says I'm defective or something's wrong with me. And if we have a sense that something's wrong with us, we're going to probably live a life of perceived failures. We're going to make mistakes along the way, and we're going to think, well, it's just because I deserve it or it's who I am. Because you really have been struggling. The core issue has been the shame, that sense I'm not good enough. I'm defective.
And how can we learn to be refined but not defined by our failures?
Okay, here we go. First of all, do a little checkpoint. Am I blaming others? If I get into a blame mode constantly, then I'm not growing. If I constantly defend everything I've done or deny it, I'm not growing. So here's what you need to look at. Am I growing, and who's in my life to keep me growing? I have to tell you, I've done some things, um, uh, even business wise and things I've been involved with. I go, what was I thinking? But when I bring the right people into the equation, I begin to see things differently. God can bring people into your life that really can help you see things differently. And look, there's a plan, and it can be good. So I really want you to hang in there, even if it's a struggling relationship.
Now, you've got this great quote. It goes, how you view failure has everything to do with how you define success. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. So if I see the only way of success is maybe I gotta have certain things, I have to live a certain lifestyle, I have to have a certain amount of money, and I success is something out here that's um, never really obtainable. Oh, and I tell you, I've worked with many folks who you would think, "Oh, yeah, success. Yes. Oh, but I've seen the inward struggle, and I've seen what's really going on, and I can tell you, things are not always as they seem." So, in fact, most of the time, they're not. Success has to be a sense of personal peace. There's a sense of peace. I feel successful when I'm growing, I'm accomplishing, and we all have different personality types. What may be accomplishment to one person, another person's going to go, no, that's not accomplishment to me. Look, accomplishment and a sense of waking up, having joy, having peace, and knowing that my life has purpose. That's a key part of success.
Now, you say that looking at the past will inform your present and change your future. I can kind of understand that, but I want to hear what you mean by that.
Sure. Well, I do need to look at my past, but I can't stay stuck in my past. Some people have that rear view approach to life. They're trying to look ahead. It's like in the car, but you're just stuck on the rear view mirror, and all you see is your past. All you see is your past quote failures, and you can't ever see anything different for the future. But if I can look, and there's a sense of I need to look at some things objectively. Maybe I need somebody to help me with that, and look at some things from a little different vantage point. And you're going to begin to see, oh, yes. And I have to tell you, some things I learned a long time ago that I didn't think really mattered, mattered today. And part of that was even how to write a book. Okay. Okay. Talk about failures. So
45
I've
books
often,
later, though.
well, but I have to tell you, my first book was terrible.
Oh,
I had, I had misspellings. It
oh
was
no.
terrible. I was a book. I was so passionate about it. Well, I'm going to get this thing published, so I published it myself, and I got way ahead of myself. And I have a box with 21 letters from publishers, 21 rejection letters.
Wow.
Well, that was back when we had so many publishers. So I was just sending out, somebody please like my book and publish it. So 21 failures, right? Okay. But I stayed in the game. One publisher, one small publisher said, yes, we'll take it. And that particular book, Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse, from many years ago, 1992, is still selling copies today. That book that book has actually over time been the biggest seller book I've ever had, Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse. But I also remember, I had 21 rejections trying to get it published.
Okay, so let's talk about failure some more because I like where we're going right now. Because we often view failure as a very negative and bad thing. If I fail at something, I'm not reaching my goal, or there's a setback, or there's a delay in me obtaining what I want out of life. Let's talk about the positive aspects of failure and how these are lessons for the future.
Yes, it may teach you some things about yourself. Maybe I'm a perfectionist and I have to do everything a certain way, or what I believe to be perfect, or I'm not going to do it. So I never really do much because I don't believe I can do it perfectly. So there are people that respond that way. There are those that may have the gift of so many great ideas and they're a creative. But as far as bringing order and structure and management around an idea and creating order, that's not their gift set. So learn, well, what's my gifts? And what kind of people do I need in my life to surround myself with that maybe have gifts that I don't have? And, you know, true true success is not a one person deal. It's a team. And you have people in your life, the word I'm going to use is that really empower you. Now, I have to tell you, it's super important. Self care, taking care of yourself, working on issues related to both emotional health as well as physical health. You've got to look at the whole person. Sometimes people get so focused on a particular goal that a lot of other things in their life fall by the wayside, and it's really not healthy, and they're really not happy.
I read somewhere that fear and worry are interest paid in advance on something you may never own. So let's talk about what's the link between fear and failure.
Well, fear is a something we all will experience. We just can't stay stuck in it. Anxiety is the number one diagnosis in North America right now. Anxiety. It's not a medical diagnosis, but it is the number one diagnosis because people are feeling anxious. So it freezes us. It freezes our brain. We tend at times not to make decisions with fear, or we make a lot of impulsive decisions. I'm impulsive and I act out. So watch it with fear. Fear also lies to us. Fear says you can't do it. Fear says, you're defective. That's where shame comes from. So we've got to plug the truth in, and the fear will always lie to you.
Now, the final section of your book is about how to reframe our failures. What are a few of the 14 ideas you suggest?
Well, one of the things to reframe is, first of all, be careful about anger or bitterness in your life. If I feel like I've failed, I can get really angry at others or myself. So, one of the things that I need to look at is my emotional health. Look for the three deadly emotions: anger, fear, and guilt. What are we saying? We're saying those toxic emotions can take you away from what you really want in life. So, one of the targets I have to have is I'm going to keep working on my emotional well being in my life. And I also then need to look at what are the relationships in my life? Do I have empowering, truth telling friends in my life? Or am I surrounded with people that maybe are doing the opposite? So begin to look at, again, that's one of the targets is the health of my relationships. You got to have somebody that can believe in you. I mean, really believe in you.
And obviously, it's really unhealthy to be in that failure mode. So let's talk about how to move on after failure. And like, does thankfulness help us move on?
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm going to use the word gratefulness.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. And maybe it's a good time to start a gratitude journal. I
Hmm.
can tell you, I know it sounds maybe even silly, but gratitude in our lives, we love to be around grateful people. They're like a magnet. Grateful people just draw others to them. When I say grateful, I mean really, sincerely. You're moving beyond all your personal issues to gratitude, and you're beginning to be in a place to serve others. Um, we had my wife and I a number of years ago had a very difficult period of time. Cancer was in her life, and dealing with that. And she began a gratitude journal, literally every day writing gratitudes. Fast forward many years now, um, she's still doing this. There's lots of journals, and she's at she was last at 27,000 something gratitudes. But here's what I learned from her. First of all, how do you write 27,000 gratitudes? Well, you just do a few each day. Um, but she said, I think it was one of the things that changed my perspective that really helped keep me alive. Wow, gratitude. So when we move beyond a sense of failure, we become more grateful.
Now, what would you say to a person who feels that they can never recover from their failures in life? Maybe like something that they did in their past really crippled them and they feel that they could never move on from that.
Yes, there's something called self-forgiveness. There's forgiving of others. Maybe you had somebody that was extremely abusive in some way that created a lot of harm, and so now you feel resentments and bitterness. I can tell you for success, we've got to deal with any old past pain. Sometimes it's self-forgiveness. And self-forgiveness is not saying it's not a license to say everything I did was right, but there comes a place where you go, you know what? I made some mistakes, and I'm not going to punish myself for that anymore. I've learned a great deal. I'm going forward. So, uh, forgiveness, a key part of moving beyond failure.
Well, Greg, we're just about out of time, so thank you so much for being with us today. We really enjoyed having you on our show.
Good to be with you. And I just want to say it again: hope comes when there's a plan. And really, truly, I know personally, when there has been failure, it does not need to be final.
Hope comes with a plan. Dr. Greg Jantz is the author of Why Failure is Never Final, available at aplaceofhope.com. I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.